Well, Nest family, hasn't it been a tumultuous couple of days? I mean, the absolute devastation of the Selwood news, that is simply hard to fathom. The win against St Kilda, which gave everyone a lift. And then today, some more very concerning news regarding one of our very best of all time. Drew Jones, it's been a massive few days for the West Coast Eagles family. Hello to you, my friend.
Hello, Garby. I just really wanted to start the podcast, and nice to chat to you. I just wanted to start the podcast with something that Chris Judd said about Adam Selwood. Some people bounce when they run. They glide with their feet barely touching the ground, the result of genetic gifts bestowed on them. That wasn't how Sellers ran. He was a great runner, but it was purely a result of grit, determination and work. His knees slightly knocked. Knee lift, almost non-existent. Every step was a testament to his determination, which was without peer. He was the perfect teammate. You knew you were going to get everything each and every week on the field while being completely focused on the team. While off the field, his personality blended a hard edge with kindness and compassion, a kindness he gave to everyone else, but not himself. I hope he's up having a beer with Troy, with the sun shining on them both. And when he takes the field, I hope the forwards aren't trying to get goal side anymore, and that the new teammates love playing with you as much as we did. Rest easy.
I must admit, of all the tributes I read, that was the one that got to me the most. It was beautifully put by Juddy, and I mean, everything that has been said around the Selwood tragedy, and we know that it's not just Adam, you just obviously agree with every single element of it. It's just heart-wrenching, it's hard to fathom, and you are just heartbroken for the family, the parents, for Scott, who's one of our own, for Joel, of course. So there's not much more we can say about that, Drew. We know that everyone's just completely smashed emotionally as a result of this because of what the Selwood family's gone through. So I'd like to reflect a bit on Adam Selwood, the footballer. And we said it, all we wanted from the team on Sunday was to play with the Selwood spirit. And that's not just Adam, that's Troy and that's Joel and that's Scott as well. And they did, which was fantastic to see. But I remember watching him for the first time, Adam Selwood. It was a Friday night game in the Waffle. He hadn't made his debut yet. I don't know why I was at a Waffle game, East Perth, but I was. I remember calling a mate at halftime, another big Eagles fan, and saying, Adam Selwood's going to play a lot of football for us. I've watched him in the flesh and I'm so impressed. A tall, strong midfielder, not the quickest, but he can play in a variety of positions. We've got one here. And sometimes you say that about players, it doesn't work out, but it obviously did with him. And wasn't he just one of the crucial ingredients of a premiership team around so many highly talented stars? He was just the reliable nuts and bolts player who had more talent than that, but that's the way we looked at him. And a wonderful person post-football as well, who we were lucky enough to speak to on this podcast, and just the kind of person that you think society needs more of. And it's just such an enormous tragedy that unfortunately we've lost one.
So I think Adam will probably go down as a really important person in West Coast history, as one of the young leaders in the aftermath of Chris Judd leaving and the Ben Cousins stuff and all the tumult that followed the 06 flag and that playing group. So we spoke to him about that on the podcast. I think if you speak to any player who came through during that period, they would say Adam Selwood was a leader that I looked up to. He was someone who helped guide the football club through a difficult time. So he has the ultimate respect from us, from the outside and clearly from those on the inside. And essentially every premiership team has an Adam Selwood. And I think if you ask anyone at a premiership reunion about who the most respected and most valued players are, they probably end up being someone like Adam Selwood. Like, if you listen to, I mean, I respect Chris Judd so immensely. For him to share those words, I think it holds a huge amount of weight. And, you know, the way that Juddy would talk about Selwood or Rowan Jones or anyone like that from that era, you get, you know, you can get an understanding for the sacrifice and the selflessness that they had on the field, who were just so loved within the four walls of a footy club. And I think he was a tremendous blend of you know, discipline and role playing, but also football skill. Like, he was a good footballer, but he chose to be the reliable guy. He chose to be the adult in the room, so to speak. And that's why he was universally loved at the footy club. I didn't know Adam that well. We obviously spoke to him on the Nest, which was a great pleasure for us. I know I've gotten to know Scott quite well, and I just think he's a wonderful person. I've gotten to know Joel a little bit, and I respect him. He's a different type of person to Scott, but a tremendous leader, obviously, and so we're respected. And for the parents to have had to go through that, I spoke to Nick Del Santo on Monday, who used to play in the backyard with Adam and Troy and Scott and Joel. And, you know, Nick is just such a nice person and one of the most positive and you know, bubbly people you'll spend time with. And he was just, you know, ashen-faced, talking about what they've been through. Just, you know, and it makes me sad thinking about the four boys playing basketball together with, you know, their best friend Nick in Bendigo. He was telling stories about how Troy and Adam would just beat up Joel and Scott because they could. But Nick was the friend, so they left him alone. You know, they wanted him to go home to his parents and be, you know, not have a bloodied nose or something, because they wanted Nick to keep coming over to play sport. And it just rips your heart right out thinking about the boys. So, yeah, it's tough. You know, it's really hard. And what I wanted to say about the Eagles on Sunday, like, I found it hard to really ride the highs. And I was really torn up, as I'm sure a lot of people were on the Saturday, trying to understand. And I've tried to channel that the last couple of days into talking to the AFL about the mental health space. But I just think over this last period, our West Coast team hasn't turned up when we've really needed them on a lot of occasions. But they really did on Sunday. To think about the amount of people within that football club who would have been broken. For the players to be able to turn up and play a really spirited performance to get a win, I think they have my utmost respect for what they did on Sunday.
Yeah. Well, I was just thinking, like, when the news broke on Saturday and then Sunday, how hard it would have been. I kind of envisaged, I don't know if John Worsfold would have been up to it. Maybe he wouldn't be, as someone who coached Adam Selwood, but you would have thought, if not him, then Andrew McWelter would have simply said, you know, you've just got to play with the Selwood spirit. That's the least that we can do, is play with the spirit of a guy who was just so relentless, tough, and committed, and for all four quarters. Because, you know, we were moving towards a win. 2 close calls against Essendon and Richmond, and really against Hawthorn and Melbourne. It was only one blowout quarter that stopped us from being right in those games. So it just had to be that, and for 4 quarters. And I think we did channel the Selwood spirit in that game, which was pleasing to see. And, I mean, we've got to talk about the football as well, but there were definitely, you could see on the faces of many, Jamie Cripps, Oscar Allen, the coach himself, several others, mixed emotions afterwards. I thought the captain spoke exceptionally well after the game, and that was great to see from him, who, as he said, has also gone through a lot recently. Yeah,
great leader. I think that's our Oscar Allen. You know, that's the Oscar that we have seen over the years, and you know, he didn't have to go into that level of detail in that moment. So that I appreciated that, as I'm sure many others did. Kind of like I feel wistful now. I could kind of want him to sign a long contract and stay. Like that sort of probably, it changed like the narrative of how I'm thinking about Oscar Allen in that moment. I sort of, there was a part of me that was like, this guy's a West Coast man. We don't want to lose West Coast men.
No. I think a lot of people have posed that question in the wake of not just his interview, but his overall game as well. Simply put, we've given Oscar a contract offer. Not as if we haven't offered him a deal. He's just chosen not to accept that, and he's got a better one on the table, seemingly from Brisbane, from a club that's happy to take more of a risk on him because they're in a position to do so, having just won a flag and being in that window. So he'll probably choose that, and we'll get very good compensation as a result. It's probably win-win. But, of course it's sad to lose someone who is, as you say, West Coast through and through, most certainly. And that came to the fore on the weekend.
Yeah. So, I know it's hard it's very difficult to pivot between such a difficult topic and talking about football. But I said to you before the podcast started, I love the way you break down Eagles' performances. So I've got some stuff I want to put to you, but I want you to tell me and the listeners what you thought of the performance.
Well, in general, I mean, it had been coming, as I said before. Like the main change was getting our midfield mix right. And credit the coach. He really has done that. And the main area he's done that through is the rucks. So, there's been no stubbornness there. There's been no observing what so many of our fans have had to say about Matt Flynn and Bailey Williams, that they're both useless and all that. No. He's seen that Williams went back to the waffle, played exceptionally well. All right, well, you can play as a second ruck forward. And Flynn went back to the waffle and did superbly, and all right, you deserve another go. And look, we don't have one gun ruckman. We've got two that are solid. So why not put them together to give us a chance in our main deficiency? And Rowan Marshall had a great game around the ground because he's Rowan Marshall. But in the middle, they held their own and around stoppages. And then the changes through the midfield, namely Harley improving. So that's one of them. So he's getting hands on ball and winning clearances. And then Ryan and Brockman and Huey going through there, and then Brady Hoff, who is turned into a midfielder. And that's his big one. Because getting forwards like Brockman and Ryan, they're moves that he's had to make, and they're gutsy, and they've been really good for us. But actually taking a play like Brady Hoff, who Adam Simpson said, he said on the weekend, I didn't see Andrew McWalter pulling that rein because Hoff has been such a good defender for a while. To make that change, and he can do it because Baker's gone back and added so much to us. That's been just a huge win. He was fantastic on the weekend, and it's given our midfield some toughness, some defensive acumen, and it allows the rest, of course, to springboard like Ryan and Brockman, and then Kelly when he goes through there as well. Love that he's playing half forward now. We've been calling for that. It's worked out well. So that's where the main change has come from, hasn't it, Drew? Because the defence we've always said is pretty solid. The forward line's always had threats. We just had to get that midfield up to speed, and now it has. It's been building over the last month, and it was always a chance to lead us to victory against the Saints, and it did.
Yeah, well, you've actually covered a fair bit of the stuff that I wanted to ask you about. So, do we think Harley's nearly back? Like, we're starting to see a little bit of the glimpses of what we saw during his sort of golden patch during the middle of last year. Like, see, like the swagger's back, confidence is back. Seems like I would guess he's feeling a bit fitter and stronger, and that's helping him. But he seems like he's getting towards the Harley that we know.
Well, certainly. And I think, has someone read in the riot act behind closed doors about giving away free kicks and carrying on a little bit? Or has the frustration just subsided because he's fitter now? We don't quite know. But he's just playing footy. He's palming blokes off. He's kicking big goals. He's playing team footy so well. That's what I love. Like, he's giving big handballs away. He's not just looking down the ground to kick it to a bloke on the lead every time. He's buying into the game plan, which is this handball game plan. So that's been pleasing. Yeah, he looks right at it, and who knows what's going to happen. But, you're enthused at the moment about him potentially signing a short-term extension because he seems happy, but that doesn't mean anything. But I think he's very close, if not at the level that he was last year when he ripped apart games against Melbourne and Freo.
Even a little hanger on the skipper and saying, sorry, mate, using it as a step ladder. I've noticed that willingness to handball, and he's a good user by hand. I think the thing about Harley is he'll handball to a player who's in a better position, and I think that's why he looks good when he uses his hands. So, I've probably shifted my mindset a little bit. I'm back to sort of enjoying watching him play, and I'm sort of worrying a little bit less about contracts and futures and whatever like that. So Harley's back in a good space, which is really good. And then I reckon 2 weeks ago we hadn't landed here yet, but I think Hoff has shown he can be a midfielder. And you touched on it without my prompting. But the gutsiness of McQualter to take a player from a role that they are, I would say, top 5 to 10 lockdown medium defender in the comp, to take him out of that slot and to try him as a midfielder. There's risk associated with that. But I think it's paying off. And Hoff, it appeared to me on the weekend that was the most confident that he'd looked in the role. Gets his goal, gets reward, but just with ball in hand, he looks assured. And you mentioned about the defensive acumen, which I think is a great point. So I don't think you need to say anything more about Hoff. I just think it's been a big tick. And then just a bit more on the midfield moves. So I think that McQualter has made a couple of coaching gaffes to start the season. Yeah. He is a first-year coach, so not everything is going to be smooth sailing. But I think him identifying a need in the midfield and using Liam Ryan and Tyler Brockman at centre bounce, I think has been really interesting. And I think what they've offered has been really good. Have you liked their qualities that they've brought to the clearance game?
It's been fantastic. And then with Kelly as well. So you've got the three amigos really, who will just rotate between half forward and the centre square. It's great for Kelly. So he's now freed up mentally. He knows there's not this pressure going into games of playing full-time midfield where he might get a tag, draining. He can have some spells out of the centre square and run around in the forward line a bit more and be more creative. That's great for him, I think, physically and mentally. And then it's great for Brockman and Ryan to get in the game because, it's almost the contrast for them because sometimes they get starved up forward and, we think Liam's not trying hard enough or, what's happening with Brockman? Well, all right, we're putting you in there now. Go make it happen. They enjoy that responsibility. They're loving it. And it's adding so much to the team. As long as you've got Ruckman that can compete, and with Flynn and Williams, they now get to halve the work, so they can both go in fresh. And then a defensive midfielder in there, be it Hoff or be it Bakes when he goes through there or Graham at a stoppage or whatnot. So it's worked really, really well. And a couple of moments on the weekend, I've watched back some of the highlights a few times where Ryan, Kelly, Brockman, whoever it is, has won it through the midfield. One of those other players, as soon as it's won in the midfield, they've got 10 metres at half forward. You watch them go. Their anticipation and their pace, they're already spreading. There's a couple of goals or a couple of shots that we had purely from that. You think, how quickly have Kelly or Brockman got away from their man straight out of the stoppage win? It's working really well for us right now.
Yeah, so I like the identification of... So Liam Ryan is a superstar, but traditionally he's been a 10 to 12 possession superstar. So how can we put him in more situations to impact? Let's put him around the ball. That makes sense. For Tyler Brockman, it's like we're exploring. It's like, okay, we know that he's got these explosive traits that we've seen, but what can he do around the ball? Like, is there a midfielder hidden away in here, but we just need to see what he can do? So I think it's exploratory a bit with Brockman, and so far I've liked what I've seen in spurts. Defensively, I still don't know what he's like in the midfield, so that'll take some time. But clearly we had to change something, and McQualter and the team have identified something. And we pretty much called for it a few weeks ago. We said, what are we doing? Like, what is the coaching that's going on here to stop the rot? And something's actually changed, so that's good. So just quickly, I think Sandy Brock appears to be a tick. I was probably in the camp pre-season that we should have gone for someone more senior as our SSP signing as a defender. But I've liked what I've seen the last couple of weeks from Sandy. And then it appears that Harry Edwards has responded to the coaching. Less flying for marks, more spoiling. Very simple, but seems to have made a difference. Would you agree?
Yeah, I thought he had an excellent game. And, Harry's become a big talking point amongst supporters, and I've had a bit of back and forth with Tommy Carullo, which is a bit of fun. But Harry's had a lot of good games for us. Okay, maybe a lot's an extension because he's only played 46 or 47, but he's had several very good games for us. A lot of them have been more of the intercept variety. Now he's being asked to play lockdown, and it's not a tough adjustment. So maybe he took a little bit of time to get his head around the demands, and it seems like that's happened now. He still takes grabs, but his spoiling work's excellent. And I thought he was fantastic on the weekend. And, we've got, a few days ago, I felt like we had a call to make. There's some news on Jeremy McGovern that we're going to discuss as well, which means that maybe that call in horrible circumstances might be taken out of the coach's hands as well. But they look settled as a combo down there. They're going to have tougher tests, of course. They're still young. They're still learning. But there's some encouragement there. I thought someone who really deserves a shout-out, Tommy Cole had a good game. That was Liam Duggan's best game for the season. Mm-hmm. He's come in for a lot of crap, and a lot of it deserved in terms of constructive criticism because he hasn't been playing well. But at the start of the game, he really, I thought, set the tone for us. He looked calm, composed, and used the ball well out of defence and led from the front. I thought Liam Duggan had a ripper.
Yeah, I agree with that. So one more I wanted to put to you. So the Richmond style, which has somewhat been implemented by McQualter, if you think about the way that players impacted for the Tigers, it's about players stepping up when the ball's in their area and making an impact on the game. It's not necessarily about getting 30 disposals. So what I've noticed with Jack Hutchinson and Ruben Jimby is every one of their disposals, or most of them, are impactful for us. So Jimby's, I think, is having a really good season. And when he's swooping on the ball or he's spoiling or he's intercepting or he's around the footy, he's making an impact. He's not going to be a rebounding defender, in my view, that's going to have 25 or 30 disposals, but it feels to me like every time he's around the ball, he is impactful. And I'm getting that sense with Hutch as well, particularly with defensive efforts, but also he's bobbing up and getting his hands on the footy. And then Elijah Hewitt, of course, has got quite a large percentage of midfield time of late, but he is proving impactful. I'd like him to just scale back the fend-offs and taking on of players a little bit. He's always done it, but I'd like him to scale it back a little bit. But this like long-range goal kicking he's developed, his leadership qualities, his enthusiasm is infectious. I think between those three guys are and Kelly at half forward is an example as well, of guys who are finding a way to impact even though they're not having huge possession numbers.
Yeah. And then there's the old Richmond duo, Baker and Graham, who both were fantastic on the weekend. They both got 7 coaches' votes, led the way. I think they're probably 1 and 2 in our John Worsfold medal at the moment. Probably Baker just ahead of Graham. It'd be very close. So that recruiting move has certainly worked so far. Yes, there's the Bo Allen aspect that we need to look at and what, Jagger Smith becomes, of course. But, Gordon Graham was a free agent, but the Baker move, he's just adding so much leadership and class around our team. Graham is second in the comp for tackles. Second in the comp. He had 9 on the weekend. Second in the comp for overall pressure acts. That's a huge player to get via free agency. I would argue he's having his best season in 5 years, inclusive of what he did at Richmond. So for him to come with that attitude and set the tone for our group has been fantastic. Baker as well. And then the other thing I looked at from the weekend that was encouraging, Drew, is we had out of the side, obviously Gov, which we'll talk about. Yes, we know Yo. Then you've got Bo Allen, our first-round draft pick from last year. Clay Hall is playing really well. guys like Jack Williams, Job Shanahan, Luca Grego, who's knocking down the door, Harvey Johnston is knocking down the door. All these guys out the team who are playing really good waffle footy, Tyrell Dewar, who, last year would have been just because of injuries and form, just nailed on getting games. Now we've got 6 or 7 who you feel are hard done by to not get a run.
Yep, there's guys ready to come in. I'm looking forward to seeing them as the season goes on. I think Matt Owies could probably be dropped.
I must say, if there was one, I don't feel nice. It doesn't feel nice saying this, but if there's one player that you would have copped getting injured, it was Owies, who was out of form. And now Gross, you'd think, comes into the team, and one of the other young guys, be it Hall or Allen, gets a goal on the weekend.
Yeah, I was happy to see Gross on the field early. I know that's a funny thing to say, but I think Owies could do it. I mean, I'm not sure what the injury situation is, but he could probably do with a spell in the twos. And I think both of us love Noah Long. If he's someone who can get a crack.
There's another one.
Yeah, but I think there's stuff to be optimistic about. I think the next couple of weeks are going to be tough. Adelaide away and Geelong at home, but it was a deserved victory across the effort we saw with Essendon and Richmond, and then spirited performances against Hawthorn and Melbourne. So yeah, really tough situation, but the players delivered, and credit to them for that. So Jeremy McGovern, he's going to have his concussion assessed by an AFL panel. Is that correct?
Yeah, it's not looking good. I mean, the gut feel now is that he retires. I really hope that's not the case. But, often when it goes to this stage, that's the outcome.
The panel almost always end up on that side, don't they?
Yeah, and if you're Jeremy McGovern and you're thinking, well, at my age, everything I've done, is it worth it? Is it really worth playing on, another year? And if not playing on another year, then what's the point in playing a few more games this season? Like, the risk factor seems too high. So he may very well have played his last game as an Eagle. Really hope that's not the case. But at the same time, don't want to see him put his future life at risk. And that's what he'll be thinking. And if so, it's just a really sad way for him to go out, because you could argue and if he does retire, we'll pay greater tribute, but you could argue he's not far off a top 5 Eagle of all time. I mean, for me, it's Judd, Matera, Cousins, Cox, Kennedy are your top 5. I'm pretty steadfast on that. And then, there's a number of guys who are really close to breaking that down. And I think the Gov's right there as a 5-time All-Australian.
Yeah, well, he's at the top of the tree. So wherever he sits, I'm hesitant to. I don't want to have a career obituary. It doesn't feel finished. Like, it doesn't feel right. I think that's probably what I'm struggling with at the moment. But
these things never do. This is how they happen, though, right?
No, you're right.
Saw it with Brad Shepherd out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Like, what?
Yeah. I was just thinking last week how fit he was looking. He looks lean and strong, and so important to our footy club. So let's hope for the best. It's concerning, though. When it goes to the panel, I think you prepare for the worst. Yeah.
It seems that way. So, mid-season draft.
I was just going to say, is there any part of you that's surprised that it's gone to the panel so quickly? This is you normally wouldn't do it this quick.
I did hear some words soon after that. They were really worried. So I'm not personally surprised. I can imagine many people are, but I did hear some word that it wasn't looking good. So I thought, okay, it could be going down this path.
The panel stuff surprised me. I wondered if they would consider sort of shutting him down for an extended period and then revisiting. But anyway, that hasn't happened. So mid-season draft.
Does that mean that, maybe the Eagles have fast-tracked this and said, well, we're going to have to pick up an experienced defender if you're going to pull the plug. And we don't want you to, but We free up another spot in our list ahead of the mid-season draft potentially. So we could go that experienced defender after all, Drew, to cover for Gov if it ends up going that way, which would suck. But I've been told there's some. My inside word is that we've been told there's a lot of talent they feel we can get with pick one. And you look at how we've gone recently with Hutchinson and Marrick, who are both now regulars in our team through the mid-season draft. And Cully might have, if not for doing an ACL, might have still been playing AFL footy as well. That set him back a lot for a player who wasn't quick. It looks like we can find another one, which is going to be potentially exciting. So, yeah, what are your thoughts on how we go? Brandon Parfitt's been linked a lot, having some good waffle form, but there's a guy out of Richmond in the VFL who's doing very well, who we might get with pick one.
Yeah, I wouldn't say that I'm totally up to speed with the mid-season draft. I think if we were going to take Parfitt, that would be with a second pick, wouldn't it? Like we'll go with a youngster with our first or a younger player. That would be my guess.
As long as... Yeah, probably. It also depends if, like, Parfitt might say to other clubs, I'm not leaving WA. Like, I've just moved back here. I'm settled. Either Eagles or Dockers or, no, I'd rather play in the waffle. Like, that's a likely possibility.
Yeah. Is it Selwood with the double L in the waffle? Is that someone who's been talked about?
Yes.
I don't know much about
I've heard that, yeah.
But I've heard the name mentioned.
The Richmond player is Tom McCarthy, who's a midfielder, and he's doing very well for Richmond's VFL side. And that's put him as the likely number one pick we could get.
Right, so he's been talked about as quite possibly being where we'll go. He's right in the mix as a top 2 pick in the mid-season rookie draft next week, with interest from West Coast and North Melbourne. He's among 70 players who have nominated for the MSD so far. It looks like he's got a confidence mo. I like to see it. I have loved what Marrick and Hutchinson have brought, so I'm excited for what we can potentially unlock with this pick. Even today, I spoke to Cooper Lord, who played for the Sandy Dragons with Levi Ashcroft and some other good players, and he was overlooked in his first draft, and then he just went to the VFL and just got stuck the hell in, and then got picked up by the Blues, and he's doing pretty well for them. So that kick up the bum for a talented young player who didn't quite make the grade in the first draft, I think, it's not always a bad thing.
Yeah. Here's one for you. So I'll put it out to the Nest listeners for some questions. And to be honest, most of them, just reading through, we've sort of touched on. But Read All About It, love that, has asked about Sean Darcy. Luke Jackson, if he stays at Freo's, he's got to play first ruck. I mean, he's just a different footballer in that position. They've got to make the change now. Would you be interested in Darcy? How would that sit with you?
Issue would be the high salary. Maybe Freo could pay a portion. And how do they value him? Like, he never gets on the park. So for me, it's hard for me to place a high value on him.
I don't have any faith in his body.
I would rather go after Darcy Cameron.
I think we are going after Cameron.
Well, we are, yes. We are we're offering him big money to come home.
Yeah.
But if we're not going sort of towards the top end, then I am sort of just happy to roll with Flynn and Williams. Like, do you agree with that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean,
like Cameron's a gun, and he's durable.
Yeah. I mean, I've been a fan of Flynn for a while, as people have said, not in terms of being a gun ruckman, just I think he can do the job, and I think the Flynn-Williams combo can work for us. It's similar to Vardy and Lysette. Like when we lost Nick Nat, it's like, well, all right, we've got to play both of them now. And having 2 7.5ers, or 2 7 out of 10ers, or less than that perhaps, gives you a chance against the 10 out of 10 guys. It worked in 2018. It's kind of working for us now. So, yeah, I'd be satisfied with that. The other talking point now is because Bailey's come on and is playing so well, there's a squeeze there. Jack Williams, Archer Reed, Job Shanahan can't get in the team as long as Oscar and Jake are fit as well. Maybe Oscar goes back with Gov out, but you feel for those 3, but it's just the way it is, right? It's a good problem to have. And to be honest, you're not dropping Bailey Williams at the moment, are you? And you're certainly not dropping Flynn.
No, you wouldn't. I like the fact that I think Jack Williams can play almost any key position, and then we don't know yet about Jobe. Like if we had to put him in the team in the back line next season, let's say, but he ends up being our key forward in our premiership tilt, then that's fine. I'm not too stressed about that. But yeah, currently there's a lot of tall options for us, so that's a good spot for us to be in.
Yeah, and that's part of the reason why we're probably okay with Oscar going as strong of a leader as he is. So this weekend, Adelaide, it's tough. I think after that it's Geelong, North, Carlton, all at home. I think we can win. I think we can win one of those, definitely. I wouldn't surprise me if we won a couple, considering you won't have to travel. I think we're building nicely. I think, whether it's a big surprise against Geelong or, knocking off the Blues at home, and then obviously the North one we think we can win. I think that's possible. This weekend I think it's going to be a little bit too tough for us, for a young team going to Adelaide against a very good side. But, I'm looking forward to seeing them just trying to maintain this standard against a very good opponent in an imposing place.
All I'm after against the Crows is to avoid the carnage of the last couple of visits to Adelaide Oval, and to go there with a plan to stop when they just start monstering us. Like, we need to find a way to slow them down. Like, they are the biggest downhill skiers in the AFL, the Crows. When they're on, they're just on, and everyone wants to kick a goal and get their photo on the front of the Adelaide Addy. So just find a way to stop that. I don't want to see Tex kick an 8. I don't want to see Thilthorpe ragdolling because of this. Like, we need to match them in clearance, limit supply to the big boys, because obviously that's a massive strength for them. But we've shown that we can match it in there the last few weeks. So let's just not fall into that trap.
Yeah, maybe Hutchinson to Jordan Dawson.
Like it.
Yeah, maybe Tommy Cole runs with Rankin. Try lockdown on a couple of their superstars, and then just hope that the rest of them can maintain their form. It's looking good, mate. I'm excited. This weekend's not the best game on paper for us, but after that, there's games to look forward to. So, yeah, it's been a tragic weekend, but on the park, things are moving in the right direction, Drewy.
Yeah, I think it's nice to have those positive vibes, and then. Yeah, let's hope that, in the mental health space and footy, something can happen moving forward. But yeah, thanks for talking it over with me. I appreciate it.
No worries. Loved Malachi Champion's post as well. The guy who's wearing Adam Selwood's number 37 as well at the moment. He posted a beauty on Instagram. Thanks, Nesters. Adam Selwood, you're an Eagles legend for life. Until next time.